To call to order the Cumberland School Committee meeting, Thursday, April 12th, 2018, at 7:46 p.m. I apologize that we're so late. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Pleasure of the committee. Mr. Hess makes a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Denon. All in favor? The ayes have it, 7-0. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda, which includes the approval of the minutes, regular meeting 3/22/2018, special meeting 3/28/2018, special meeting 4/4/2018, approval of the minutes, executive session 3/22/2018, town council school committee executive session minutes 3/27/2018, executive session 3/28/2018, the enrollment report of 4/1/2018, the school police report of 3/1/2018, and the residency truancy report of 4/1/2018. Yes, we have a lot of meetings. Pleasure of the committee. Mr. Denon makes a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Hess and Mr. Fiorillo. All in favor? Ayes have it, 7-0. Next item on the agenda is the report out of executive session meeting. Report out of Town Council School Committee executive session meeting on 3/27/2018. There were no votes taken. Report out of executive session votes. Pleasure of the committee. I apologize. In a vote to seal the minutes of the executive session. Mr. Denon makes a motion to seal. Second by Mr. Hess. All in favor? Ayes have it, 7-0. Next item on the agenda. Report out of executive session meeting on 4/12/2018. Report out of executive session votes. There was no votes taken. In a vote to seal the minutes of executive session. Pleasure of the committee. Mr. DeMonica makes a motion to seal the minutes. Do I have a second? Second by Mrs. Friedman and Mr. Hess. All in favor? Ayes have it, 7-0. All right, we should check with our attorney, see if we can summarize that in one quick sentence next time. Next item on the agenda, the superintendent's report. Mr. Mitchell.
Okay, first item, we want to recognize Mr. Steve Gordon. If you would join me down at the podium, Mr. Chairman, I'd appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. And let me just apologize again for making you all wait so long. Steve, can you please come up?
Coach.
Steve, come on over here so people can see you. Stand right in the middle. Okay. Just a couple of things about Coach Gordon. I think everybody knows Coach Gordon, but on Tuesday, February 14th, I believe, or 13th, 2018, Coach Gordon coached his last dual meet. During that time, during his 50 years of coaching, he won 573 dual meets and had 7 New England champions. But it isn't just the wins we'll remember when we think about Coach Gordon. What we'll remember is the positive influence he's had on the lives of his student athletes. I've been working in the district for 6 years. And one thing that's clear to me is that Coach Gordon is a Cumberland legend. He has profoundly affected the lives of generations of student athletes. And we want to take this time this evening, and I know that lots and lots of people have sincere accolades that they're sharing with Coach Gordon, and I know that there are things that have happened already to recognize his contribution to the district, and there are other things planned. But we want to thank you for your 50 years of exemplary service, Coach, and we wish you well in your retirement. There is no question that you will be missed. Thank you. You want to read this? So we have a plaque that reads the Cumberland School Department in recognition of Coach Steve Gordon, Cumberland High School Wrestling Team in appreciation of your 50 years of service to the student athletes of Cumberland High School. Congratulations on your retirement.
I apologize, my back is to the school committee. So 50 years, Coach, right? 50 years. So I said, well, what am I going to say? So I called up Mrs. Fogel, and I said, Mrs. Fogel, pull Coach Gordon's file. Well, it was a binder like this, 50 years. And then going through it, well, a couple things that Mrs. Fogel had pulled out and brought to my attention. I just wanted to read off a couple of items. So I found a contract that was from May 11th, 1967. Coach, I was born in 1970. All right. I'm not going to read it, but it's kind of a vague back then. I don't mean in a disrespectful way, but back then the paperwork was typed up and not really organized that well. So I really don't even know what it's a contract for. I'm guessing it's for wrestling, correct? Phys ed. Okay, it's for phys ed. So May 11th, 1967. And this is what I found, and I'm going to give these to you as well, and I did want to show the committee. It's a letter that the coach wrote in August 26, 1968. Dear Mr. Condon, this letter is to certify that I am accepting the position of wrestling coach at Cumberland High School. I am looking forward to a prosperous season and many more to follow. Thank you, Stephen Gordon. So August of 26 of 1968. There's only two more documents left. On March 20th, 1968, the coach sent in his resume, and he typed it up on a typewriter. So awesome. But as I was reading through this resume, I was impressed. I'm going to read off a couple of situations that he put down on here. High school experience, Cranston West, varsity competition, 3 years, state champion, 133 pounds. Coach, I don't think you've gained much weight since, right? 1959, runner-up New England Championships, 1959. College experience, Springfield College, 3 years, intramural champion, 1967. Coaching experience, Hugh B. Bain Junior High School. Yeah, American International College, 1966-67. Officiating experience, Greater Providence area, 1963 to 1965. Greater Boston, same 1965-1966. Professional Association, the New England Association of Wrestling Officials. Back then, this was an impressive resume for a coach. So when I read through this, and I'm looking at his experience, this was the only job that he got after this and stayed here 50 years. So if he was to write this resume over, right, it would just say on the bottom, Cumberland High School, 1967, 2018. Coach, I just got goosebumps saying that. The last thing that I wanted to go through was I pulled out an evaluation for the coach in 1990, 1991, right? And I wanted to speak to the superintendent and in the school committee as well. So if we could modify this, I think they made some errors on here. It says it was by Bruce Villano. Mrs. Fogel, did I say that right? He was the AD. Well-planned lessons, excellent classroom participation, and good classroom control. Willingness to act as a team for the improvement of the program. If anyone has seen the coach teach the kids, he's kicking them. I'm just kidding. But Coach, we're going to go back and modify this. No, I'm only kidding. So, I mean, 50 years later, this was in 1990, this was the professionalism that he brought to the sport in Cumberland to have our athletes succeed at what they do. So, Coach, this is for you to have. in remembrance, and thank you. I'm hoping everybody can attend any event. I believe there's a big dinner, right, coming up. Yeah, a couple, like maybe 10, 20 people. Right. So, all right. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I think we should give a hand to Mrs. Gordon as well.
Yes. Mrs. Gordon, who I see walking every morning, and has been, the complimenting the coach on every single event I've seen you at, award ceremonies, the students, the athletes come up to you as if you were coaching them also. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the next item on the agenda is, as you all know, we had a conversation. We've had conversations over the last month or so and discussed this, I believe, at the last school committee meeting, the possibility of Cumberland joining the Northwest School District Consortium. Dr. Frank Pallotta is here this evening to provide a little information about the Northwest Consortium. And he will tell us what the next steps in the process will be. He's also available to answer any questions that you may have. So with that, I will like to introduce you to Dr. Frank Pallotta, the Superintendent of Schools in Burrillville, and really the person who was sort of spearheaded this whole thinking around the consortium. So thank you for being here, and again, we apologize for the delay in getting the meeting started this evening. Frank, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Mr. Chairman,
Welcome.
members of the school committee. In 2010, the four districts of Burrillville, Smithfield, North Smithfield, and Lincoln got together, and we decided that instead of competing with each other, we should start cooperating with each other. So we created a model. And back in 2010, there was a lot of discussion surrounding the concept of regionalization. And there were multiple definitions of regionalization. So the four communities got together with the four school committees, and we agreed to identify a model where we would define our own regionalization. And that concept, that model, formed into what's called the Northwest School District Consortium. Some of the things that we have done, and the purpose of the consortium, was to share resources, create cost efficiencies, and provide better quality education for the kids in the four districts. We currently have a brochure, we have a website, we have a strategic plan, we have a set of bylaws, and we meet once a month. I've been chairing this committee for the last 8 years. The greatest thing about the model is that the facilities directors, the special ed directors, the assistant superintendents, and the tech directors are all supportive of each other. They also meet once a month and they share ideas. I can tell you specifically what we've done over a period of the last 8 years. Our tech directors have provided free professional development for the staff in each of the districts. We share each other's expertise. So if a district has an expert in writing in Burrillville, we can share that with Smithfield, and there's no cost. Instead of bringing in a consultant 4 times and paying the consultant 4 times, we bring in the consultant once, and we share the cost between the 4 districts. We combine our bids when we have common items, when we go out to bid, so we get a better price with the 4 districts. If we have a piece of equipment that another district does not have, they can borrow that piece of equipment at no cost. In terms of our special ed programs, if a district is offering a special ed program and another district does not have that program, instead of sending that student out at $40,000 or $50,000 cost, if the receiving district has a place for that student, we just charge the per pupil cost. So there's multiple savings there. Recently, we talked about and discussed how our kids were leaving our CET programs and going outside the districts at $17,000, $18,000 per student. So we talked about that. We met several times, and we agreed to set up a procedure and guidelines. A couple of those guidelines that you would be interested in is that each of the districts would save 3 spots for the member districts. And if a student decided to go from Burrillville to Lincoln within the consortium, the cost for that student would only be $5,000 versus $15,000 or $17,000 going outside the consortium. I think going forward in the future, that's going to create a lot of savings for the districts. We just recently created a folder where all 4 districts have submitted their CTE programs. So when the guidance counselors sit down with the students, if a student shows interest in a CTE program within the consortium, the counselors will talk to those students about staying within the consortium and receiving the benefit of the CTE program within the 4 districts, as opposed to going outside the consortium. All of this that I've explained to you, there's been no cost to the districts. And over the last 8 years, collectively, we probably have saved about $100,000 amongst the 4 districts. It's a model that works extremely well. It's very supportive, where each of those content areas I talked about can pick up the phone and ask a question and not feel uncomfortable with another member district. We meet once a month. We have an agenda. It's a public agenda. We operate pretty much like a school committee. We have a resolution that each of the school committees have signed off to, giving permission to the superintendent to participate. And we also have the set of guidelines that I talked about where the superintendents have signed off to the agreement of the $5,000 cost and holding the spots open. However, within that, whatever you have going currently within your own district, there'll be no changes to that. You're still allowed to do whatever you do currently within your district regarding the CTE programs. So we didn't make any changes to that because our job is not to take away, but our job is to collaborate and make sure we make ourselves stronger and we provide better quality programming for the students. That's basically the model that we have. We had each of the superintendents sign off to the CTE agreement just in case there's a turnover of superintendents, which there will be over the years. The agreement will always be in place for the cost and providing the programs. I think I gave Mr. Mitchell a set of the bylaws. If you are interested in participating in the consortium, the next step for you would be to talk about that, submit a letter to me. I will bring it to the members of the consortium, and it would just take a majority vote of the consortium to add you to the model that we have. So with that, I'd be willing to take any questions.
Pleasure of the committee. Mr. DeMonica.
Sir, if a student goes to Burrillville and we pay the $5,000, what happens with the state aid for that child? Does it follow to your school, or does Cumberland keep it and we just pay the $5,000? How does that work?
Once the student, well, there's a couple of things attached to that. We try to get the students into the 4-year programs as opposed to accept them even in as juniors or seniors because they may not be able to finish their pathway. So we encourage the kids to participate in the 4-year program. If a student from Cumberland went to Burrillville, ultimately, when they graduated, they would get a Burrillville high school diploma. We worked out a glitch with the interscholastic league because that always comes up in terms of sports programs. If the student decided to come back to Cumberland, then he would come under the rules and regulations of the Interscholastic League. We would not get involved with that. In terms of the cost and your question, that student would be a student of Burrillville. So the per pupil cost would go to Burrillville because they would get a high school diploma from Burrillville.
Mr. Denon.
Thank you for putting this group together. It's something I think we're interested in. We voted previously to support Mr. Mitchell talking to you. So I'm looking forward to hopefully joining. I had a question about the 3 spots for the CTE programs. Is that 3 spots total?
Yes. But there again, if you had a program and a student wanted to come to your program from Burrillville and your spots were taken, and it's certainly up to you if you wanted to accept that student. Initially, we wanted to just hold 3 spots open, but we would not, none of the district would prevent any of the other districts from accepting more students because we certainly understand you'd rather accept a student at your per pupil cost rather than the $5,000.
Okay, so that was my next question. So if we fill those 3 spots, anything after that is the normal per pupil. Is that right? Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Friedman?
Do you know how many students have enrolled in a CTE pathway at one of the other member schools?
None at the present time because we just started this last month. We initiated this program. When we collectively try to do something, we have to kind of work out all the glitches. So we won't begin to know the data to that until next year and the year after. But I will tell you that one of the issues that always comes up that we have to work through, for example, the special education teachers or directors are in the process of talking about instead of having 4 summer programs for special needs kids, maybe we can have 2 or 1. We bust those kids and we try to save X amount of dollars. One of the impediments to that is working through the contract language in each of the 4 districts. So those things take time. So this is brand new. The commitment is brand new. And we think it's a great concept, and we think over a period of time it's going to save your district money.
Excellent, thank you. Any further questions? Mr. Fiorillo?
What type of common purchases do the
Type
members?
of what?
There we go. What types of what kinds of common purchases do you collaborate on?
Facilities directors do most of that. They get together when they have common lighting, filters, anything that's common in that area. They get together, they do the ordering. The business managers put together the one bid information. So when those bids come in, it's the finance directors who get together and review those bids from the districts and make the selections. There was commonality amongst the assistant superintendents in terms of ordering software programs, for example, in different content areas. So it varies.
Thank you. Any further questions?
If I may, I'll leave with you the
Mr. DeMonica?
Just as a comment, I would like to see this come on a next agenda so that we can take a formal vote and ask that we join the consortium. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh,
Chairman,
go
if you
ahead,
don't
yes.
mind, I'll leave you the resolution and I'll leave you the guidelines. So if you decide, then you just have to sign off and submit the letter.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for showing up tonight, and we apologize for the delay. Next item on the agenda, Superintendent?
Yeah, I
Yes.
just have a couple of more things very quickly, and again, I apologize, because we do have a pretty full agenda, but we're gonna move this right along. I just wanted to share some information that I think is critically important, and some of you may have seen this. This is an initiative called Together Rhode Island. And this is being supported by the Rhode Island Foundation. And the Rhode Island Foundation, and I just want to read this very quickly. I think it's the best way to share what the Rhode Island Foundation is doing with this initiative. The Rhode Island Foundation has launched a new initiative called Together Rhode Island. The purpose is to create a space for the citizens of Rhode Island to be heard, to listen, to reconnect, and to promote civic and civil dialogue. So Together Rhode Island is a series of 20 neighborly get-togethers that kicked off on March 21st, and it will end on May 5th. Together Rhode Island is taking place throughout Rhode Island at schools, community centers, and other places that are well-known and accessible. Each session will offer the chance to talk face-to-face with each other over family-style meals. Every event is free and open to the public. Each and every Rhode Islander has a role to play in ensuring our collective success. Together Rhode Island will give us an opportunity to find out more about what that means, person to person, and how we might work together to achieve it. These conversations will be a neutral place for dialogue on the topics that are critical to our common future, and a place where we hope the recent tendency toward divisiveness and polarization will be left at the door. Now, I think this is, and there's a little more, but there's no need for me to get into it anymore. I think you all get the picture. I just want not only the audience here, but also the folks at home to know that this is, I think, a wonderful opportunity. It is scheduled for the Cumberland Lincoln event is scheduled for Tuesday, April 24th at 6 o'clock. It will run from 6 to 7:30 and will take place at the Cumberland Public Library on Diamond Hill Road. And unfortunately for us, that is that we have subcommittee meetings that night, so some of us may be tied up at the subcommittee meetings, but some of us may be able, some of school committee members and others, and I hope that some of our educators and staff members and certainly members of the community will consider attending the Cumberland Lincoln function on the 24th. So I just wanted to mention that, Mr. Chairman. I just have one other thing that I would like to share
Mr.
with
Mitchell.
all of you, and that is this week is Assistant Principals Week. And so I just wanted to take a quick second here. As you know, we have a number of assistant principals, and having been in that role for 6 years, I can tell you that it is incredibly challenging. That requires a lot of skill. In many places, the bulk of an assistant principal's time is spent with students. I think in Cumberland, we ask some of our assistant principals for teaching and learning to spend more time in classrooms observing and supporting teachers, but they also spend a lot of time dealing with students. I just cannot let you all know how important they are to the success of our schools and all that they do to support our students and families and staff members. And I just think it's very appropriate to publicly acknowledge them for the very challenging work that they do. And I will be sending a personal note to them tomorrow to let them know how much we appreciate their efforts. So again, when you see one of your assistant principals tomorrow and over the course of the next couple of days, just let them know how much you appreciate the work that they do and how valuable they are to our school district. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well said, Mr. Mitchell. Well said. There is an item, parent English class.
Okay,
class presentation.
I apologize. And the
Okay.
reason I jumped over that is because we need to table that because we were going to get a brief presentation by Linda Ionetta, and unfortunately she is ill. So we'll have her present at a future meeting.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next item on the agenda, Chairperson's Report, Fiscal Year 2018 Budget Update. Nothing to be said as of right now. Next item on the agenda, report. Oh, yes, thank you. I apologize. Thank you, Mr. Fiorillo. I'd like to recognize Council President Peter Bradley is here. And then also you said Bob Shaw is here? No. I'm sorry. That's why I'm looking, I'm saying, oh, Councilman Bob Show's not here. Welcome, Council President Bradley. Next item on the agenda, Chip, reports of standing committees, payment of bills. Mr. DeMonica.
Mr. Chairman, the fiscal did meet tonight. We went over the vouchers. And on a 3-0 vote, we approved sending to the full committee the payment of the bills in the amount of $2,208,930.40. And I would make that in a motion.
Mr. DeMonica, one more time on that number, please.
$2,208,930.40.
Mr. DeMonica makes a motion for the payment of bills in the amount of $2,208,930.42. Do I have a second?
40 cents.
I'm sorry, 40 cents. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Denon, Mr. Fiorillo. All in favor? Ayes have it, 7-0. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, Fiscal Management Subcommittee update. Mr. DeMonica.
So fiscal did meet tonight again, and we have many resolutions coming up later on in the meeting. We did hear from Sodesco, who had put a bid in. They were the only bidder for maintenance services. They made a brief presentation. It's going to come back in 2 weeks for the full committee to make a decision in regards to that management contract, whether we go with it or not. So we did hear from that, and Mr. Prignano did give us a couple of letters from our insurance company noting that the value of the buildings in the town has gone up, so that has increased our insurance premium and the liability as well. So he's just making us aware of it. We will need to make some budget adjustments later on, and that was our fiscal meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeMonica. Next item on the agenda, Policy and Procedures Subcommittee update. Mr. Fiorillo.
Yes, policy did meet the other night. We discussed the E3 school meal payment policy and also the G6 personnel benefit policy for non-unit administrators and support personnel. Both policies have some minor language changes, which will be moved forward, which will be voted on later on the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Fiorillo. Next item on the agenda, Achievement and Communication Subcommittee update. Mr. Denon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Achievement and Communication Subcommittee did meet earlier this week on Tuesday night. We had a presentation from Ms. Nicole Bucca, who is our district intervention coordinator. And we learned all about intervention. We learned about what great interventionists we already have in our district, what they do, and what their needs are, the students' needs are for intervention, and as a district what we need, which generally capacity is an issue, so we have more students than we can handle. That's one of the takeaways. Yeah, it was a really interesting meeting. We talked about testing and how students enter and exit intervention, and everything related to intervention. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Denon. Next item on the agenda, comments from the public. Anyone from the public would like to stand up at the microphone and voice any concerns? All right, hearing none. Next item on the agenda, public hearing. Reading of amended policies. Mr. Fiorillo.
Excuse me. As I said, both policies have some minor changes, and I would ask that they be read into the public record.
Thank you, Mr. Fiorillo. So that's E3 school meal payment policy and also G6 personnel benefit policy for non-unit administrators and support personnel. All right, that's okay. Next item on the agenda, old business. Discussion and a vote to approve amended policy. Mr. Fiorillo.
Up for discussion is the E3 payment policy, meal payment policy. As we all know, we're having an issue. What is wrong with this one? We're having an issue with our debt of overdue accounts. We had a lengthy discussion. Part of the discussion was that communication to parents has to be increased. We're going to make some changes to the technical IT side of things in preparation for next year. We're also going to be changing some of the procedures at the various schools. But for tonight, the only thing we are voting on is some minor language change, which, which is removing some language about when a negative balance reaches $25, would be a loss of charging privileges of a la carte items, which would include snacks or maybe, just like a smoothie or something like that. Students would still be able to get a full meal at this time. There may be some changes to that in the future, though. Part of the reason for this is to really reinforce to parents that this is not really a charging account. This is a prepaid account that parents need to load the kids' accounts with money so that they can charge from it. So we're hoping that this might make a small change in the thinking, as well as raising the issue to students and parents sooner. So I would make a motion to approve E3.
Thank you, Mr. Fiorello. Mr. Fiorello makes a motion to approve E3 payment policy. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Denon. All in favor?
Aye.
Against?
Against.
Ayes have it, 6-1. Mr. DeMonico voting against. Next item on the agenda, new business. Discussion of Cumberland Youth Association, known as the CYSA Field Use Proposal. We have a couple of representatives here from the CYSA. If you could stand up to the microphone, state your name. They're leaving you out to dry, huh? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Welcome, Mike. Yes.
Sorry. I don't know if I need this, actually. There's two town programs revamping the fields and their growth so that our children can play on the fields that look good, they're safe, while we train the future of the high school programs for both football and for soccer. The fields currently aren't maintained because the funds don't exist for them. And essentially, from this proposal, the only thing that we need support on is access to a water supply. Because we all know if we aerate the fields, we seed the fields, nothing's going to grow unless it has water. So with that initial support, we can kind of take it from there. So I'm wondering if anybody has any questions.
So, Mr. Friedland,
Sure.
if I understand this right, the CYSA proposes to have exclusive usage rights to the fields when high school teams are not utilizing them, including weekdays and weekends. In consideration, CYSA would take over the maintenance of the land of the current grass surfaces, including mowing, seeding, aeration, etc., in exchange for their use at no additional cost. correct?
Correct. So all the monies that we be spending, like that we're spending right now to rent the fields, that would go directly into the fields plus more because it would cost more to maintain them.
So the way this is listed on the agenda, there's no vote tonight on this. It's just
Sure.
a proposal.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then
absolutely.
I would have in our executive or in an open meeting, we would discuss this further and see how we're going to proceed. Yes, Mrs. Friedman.
Hello.
So it said exclusive rights, but you talked about partnering with the Junior Clippers. Partnering, or
Yeah, we would partner up to maintain the fields together.
that's what I was going to ask. So you would partner up to maintain the fields together.
Yep, and make sure that the schedules all coincide. So if they're using it and they need it, it would be theirs for that time as well. So. Exactly.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
I believe Mr. DeMonico.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Apologize, Mr. Mitchell.
Last year or the year before, we heard the same sort of commitment that let's bring the water line into the field, which was brought into the field, and then nothing happened. No grass was cut. The fields weren't maintained by any group that promised us to do that. I understand your fields are undergoing maintenance right now, and if you're willing to work out something with the Colts or whatever the football program is now called, why couldn't you just work some agreement out with Mr. Campanelli, the athletic director? I have a problem giving you guys, the two groups the exclusive rights to those fields, knowing you have two other fields, two or three fields that may be down right now. And I have a real problem. I'd like to hear from Mr. Campanelli as well. I heard a message from him, and we're concerned about giving up control of school property to a group.
Okay. Essentially, it would be similar to what we're doing right now, except instead of renting them, we would actually maintain them. So right now we're renting the JV field. We're renting that area to practice on and have games on weekends when nobody's practicing or having games. So what we're looking to do is obviously have a maintenance plan for these fields and grow the fields, actually maintain them. The exclusive rights, like I said, we would be sharing the partnership, and it's really no different than what's happening right now, except we're playing on fields that aren't maintained at all. So are the high school students and the student athletes.
Mr. Camp, what his thoughts are?
I apologize, Mr. Mitchell first.
I just wanted to build on Mr. DeMonico's questions. I guess I would just need to know that there's been some collaboration with the athletic director, and that he is, based on what he's learned from your organization, that he that he's comfortable with what you're proposing. So I haven't had that conversation yet, and nor has anyone on the committee. I don't want to put Matt on the spot, but
Oh, sure.
Matt, are you prepared to offer your perspective on this?
Well, Mr. Mitchell, before Mr. Campanelli, before you come up, Mr. Friedland, I do have a couple quick questions.
Sure.
So we have an insurance company called the Trust. That we would have to consult them to see if what you're proposing first fits within the realm of coverage, and we'll look into that. Also, so you're going to maintain the fields. Where would you keep the mowers, the machinery? Would you bring it in on a trailer? Okay.
It'll all be brought in and taken out.
All right.
Right now, the only thing we store, if you want to call it, we have a gang box there, and we have goals, and they're all locked up.
So you're looking for this proposal to be implemented for this year? Is that what you're looking for?
We would be
Or-
looking
I didn't
for
see a
it to
date on
start
here.
in the fall.
in the fall. So it would be September? Is that what,
End of August,
end of August? Okay.
whenever you're willing to.
My summer goes longer.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I want to I want to address the fields being down, the 2 to 3 fields being down. We have one field that's down currently. It's the backfield, the Tucker Field. And did it put us in a bind? Absolutely. But actually taking ownership or maintenance rights of these fields does not negate what's down right now, because what's down at the back part of Tucker Field is actually a full-size field, and none of the property here can maintain can accommodate a full-size field.
Also, Mr. Friedland, so your program starts in April, though, traditionally, correct?
No, our program runs all year round. So we have a fall program. We also have a spring program.
All right, so when does it start in the spring?
Spring, it starts in April.
It starts in April. And then it runs consistently until November?
No, so it runs through till middle to end of June, depending on how far some teams go.
April to
Really, some
June.
of them to the beginning of June, some till the middle of June. And then it starts back up again the middle of August and runs through till November 1st.
What I'm seeing, I guess, is, and I don't know the whole story, but the town is currently doing some maintenance. So if you're using the fields April to June, then July, August, they would have to do maintenance on the fields, and then you would pick up August to November. I know at the end of November, snow typically starts coming in, so I believe the town is doing some maintenance. I don't know if we had to do, or if you had to do the maintenance, if you had to, I don't know too much about landscaping, but plug or reroute or whatever, would that take the space of when your program, would it be a,
Onto these fields?
yes,
So well, the mowing and everything like that would take place accordingly, and then we would fit it. We'd have to come up with a schedule to.
so July
So
and beginning of August, you would still maintain these fields? Okay.
yeah, because they would have to be in condition to use them in August, and then the high school teams start up again as well, so they would be maintained for them to start up.
Before Mr. Campanelli comes up, any further questions? Mr. Hess, I apologize.
I apologize if you said this earlier. Who would pay for the water in your proposal?
That's something that we were looking to kind of work out, because we would need the supply in order to even consider.
Assuming that the supply is there, I mean, obviously, if the fields are not maintained now and you want them maintained, there's going to be a significant expenditure in water.
Sure.
So, just curious.
That we would discuss that.
Okay.
We're definitely open to discussing it. Just a matter of first where the water's coming from, and then we go from there.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Campanelli? Well, Mr. Campanelli, do we have water at every field that is proposed?
So, Mr. DeMonica referenced conversations and work that has been done over the past 2.5 years. We've kind of hit a standstill. We have water. The town put a water line in. It has enough flow, big enough pipes to actually hit the upper practice field, the lower soccer field, and then what is affectionately known as the pit, farm drive softball. So it's built to, or was designed to water all those fields even simultaneously. I was told it has enough flow. The biggest hurdle for what project we sort of was a grassroots effort, hit the biggest road bump was finding someone that would donate a sprinkler system, because obviously people are still willing to do work and update and maintain, but they're not going to expend their own resources if they can't get it, till the grass, overseed, whatever they're doing. They want to make sure that it can be maintained, and water is obviously the lifeblood of everything. So we kind of hit a little bit of a road bump or a roadblock to kind of keep on pursuing that. We've got trees cleared, we fixed some fences, we did a lot of the kind of hands-on DIY stuff that we could do with some volunteers and organizations like the Colts and now the Junior Clippers over the years, putting lights up and things like that, have certainly been loyal kind of symbiosis between the school and that program. So I don't see why more programs couldn't have that same symbiotic relationship. I just, the first time I saw this, some of the language, exclusive rights, and it puts up a few, roadblocks and say, can we talk about this and have a discussion. I certainly don't want to, you know, start a fight with any youth organizations, and you know, that's not what I'm here. You know, not my concerns. And losing not necessarily control, but I have to have a decent amount of flexibility right now. The coaching staff is a decent amount of teachers, so they have the flexibility to go right after school. But if I hire a coach who teaches at community, say for instance, they're getting out at 3 o'clock or 3:30, they can't get here till 4. And if I have two coaches in that same position, then I got to start pushing practices back, juggling the turf and the multiple fields that we can use. But these fields, if they're fully operational and have better footing, I mean, right now we're basically growing rocks in the upper field. They would relieve a lot of stress on the other fields that the town maintains. We'd be able to probably shut, you know, I figure they wouldn't be full size, you know, roughly 100 by 60-yard fields for all the different sports, football, field hockey, soccer. But they'd be great for practice, great for youth sports, great for smaller gameplay. But with those extra 3 fields that we have up there, you'd be able to shut one down, say October, aerate, overseed, fertilize, whatever you have to do, not open it up till August. And then you have 2 fields. So at the end of the year, when soccer's winding down, youth football's winding down, and by mid-November, it's just our varsity football team.
That's the information I was looking for.
Yeah, so it would certainly, we wouldn't even have to, we could say, all right, back Tucker, you know, which the town is renovating now, we'll get off that, we'll come up here this year and have a rotation. And I know in conversation with the rec director, the highway department, the mayor, we've talked a lot about kind of a yearly maintenance plan, so we're not in situations where all of a sudden we go from, you know, 10 fields to 6 fields because they need work. And the biggest dilemma we have here is the fields never get a rest. I mean, between youth groups and high school, everything goes right till November. Then we, you know, go indoors, and then we want to, you know, we're clamoring to get out there and play baseball and softball and tennis, you know, as soon as the sun breaks in mid-March. So they really don't have time. It's a mad dash just to get them playable for, you know, April 1st.
Another question I have is, would the maintenance be done? So there's 6 months that kids are in school that you'll be using these fields after 5 to 6. When will the maintenance be done? I would have a concern if the maintenance is being done while kids are in school or possibly around the fields. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know, like currently, I mean, the growing season for what we have up there, at least on these fields, isn't very long.
I mean, that is a good question. I
Yeah.
don't know when.
And I know, and that was one of my, you know, like, you know, in terms of scheduling, and not that I want to have sort of the grand domain over the fields, but you know, there's things that happen at the school department, like on a Saturday, if there's a SAT Saturday, and we've got, you know, hundreds of kids coming for SATs and hundreds of soccer players showing up at once. It could make, obviously, and you've got whistles blowing, classrooms, you know, are supposed to be taking tests, things like that, the auditorium. I mean, I run into it with my own events, you know, on a weekly basis, and I try to stay away from big nights and awards nights and things like that. But, you know, when you get to this point and 2 weeks into the season, you've canceled 14 games for the high school and 14, you know, you start to pack it in. So there's some of those logistics that we'd have to think about, iron out. And, you know, obviously I'd have access to the school calendar and see those things. So having control of that accessibility and say, you know, it'd be a lot of, you know, planning and organization, and but we've been able to maintain that as a practice facility because it's easier, it's more fixed. You know, the weekends become a little bit more of an issue of what's going on at the high school.
We would also have gaps in the game schedule too,
Sure.
so that it can be done on weekends.
Okay. Oh, Mr. DeMonica.
I mean, I'm in favor of trying to work something out informally. I mean, these are town fields, these are town schools. And if we can work something out through Mr. Campanelli so that they can get used, I'm all for it. So that if another group has to come in and use the field or something that's all worked out, like he says, he needs to know when SATs are going in so we can do what we gotta do. I'm in favor of doing it, just informally that that they're gonna use the field, the football's gonna use the field, whatever group that's gonna do it, whether it's a Walk for Life or whatever it may be, that can work it out with Mr. Campanelli. than just put something in writing and say, you're it. Just work it out. I mean, that's my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. DeMonica. Anyone else? Mr. Denon.
So how much does CYSA pay today to rent the fields? You mentioned
I'm not. Well, I'm not privy to the pay scale. I think it's $20 an hour. So I don't know what their total. I didn't do the math.
I wasn't asking you actually.
Oh, okay.
So-
Sorry.
So right now, the document that we have is for $4,700 just for the spring period.
Okay.
It equates to $20 an hour. What we're doing right now is we've been kind of doing what Mr. Campanelli's been doing of rescheduling games and things like that due to obviously the weather. So once we have the finalized hours and games and everything, the total will be somewhere around there.
And my other question might be for you, Mr. Campanelli. We have soccer and football. Is there any other group that isn't included here that we would be excluding from the discussion?
Well, that's where, some of this language and defining times and things like that. So in the summer, it's our varsity girls soccer team or occasionally our boys. They've typically used the backfield and the girls have used this one. But they've also, depending on what's going on and who needs a field and what's going up. And we sometimes relocate the boys here too. So it's football, varsity soccer. We also in the spring, because we can't get on Tucker Field, or we'll send baseball, go out and do long toss or, hit fly, because we're in the gym. So they haven't, caught a baseball from more than 50 feet. So they need to do some of that. So baseball, softball will hit there. They'll use it lightly. They won't, play a game, or it's mostly just to get outside and see some sunlight once in a while when we can before the fields are ready. And then boys and girls lacrosse use it in the spring. So from our perspective, the school perspective. So all their practices either rotate between the back soccer field or the JV soccer field as it's called, or the turf when it's available.
Right. So the agreement, the proposed agreement, allows for the school to use it whenever it needs to. But,
Yeah, and that's
my words. But
yeah, and that's my biggest, when I saw it, the fear is I don't want to have to, no offense, I don't want to have to call you. Hey, Mike, can I use my field?
My question
think,
is about other groups, like other youth groups that are not associated with the schools.
In my history, there's only been the Cumberland Colts or Junior Clippers that have, and they've been loyal for at least I played there,
50
so
years, right?
50 years of some odd years. So I think they pay their bills. So and they've made a lot of improvements to the field, and they've been kind of dedicated, purveyors of that land, making it better, cutting back brush, improving it. So, I really want to make sure they're part of this process as well, because, not that they're grandfathered in, but they've been, loyal citizens to it for a long
I
time.
appreciate that. I think that's the way to go.
Yeah.
This would eliminate our use of a couple other fields, which would open it up more to lacrosse. And if we're thinking about lacrosse and flag football, they have enough space right now, but it would be less of a conflict.
Mr. Campanelli, is parking an issue at all?
Like I said, it would depend a lot. Like at after hours, after school, I don't believe so, unless there was some major event in the theater or in the auditorium. Weekends, again, something like SATs, or if it'd be in the spring. I can't think of any event that I host that would take that kind of parking, aside from maybe a track. Like we host a very big one of two track meets. It's just for the girls, called a Cumberland Invitational. That's every school in Rhode Island comes here, and our boys go. Every boys' school goes to another location. That's where we're parked, at Charlemont, back of the high school. The buses usually park up there. So there's a few weekends like that where we'd really have to say, hey, we can't have 16 soccer teams up here. I'm throwing that random number out for a tournament, because we've got, a tournament going on down at the turf or at the wellness center. Like we host a pretty big AAU basketball tournament at the wellness center, which really doesn't have anything to do with us, but they've rented it for a number of years, and that takes up a fair amount and that's usually in May. So there's some dates like that the
schedule would have to be worked with us.
Yeah.
Or not us, but the schools.
Sure.
And then with you, Mr. Friedman.
And actually, on your way in to even this meeting or these meetings today, we had 4 teams practicing already.
Also, Mr. Friedland, is we would have to define what is properly maintained in those fields, what expectations would be.
Sure.
So there would be some working out, but I think we get the gist. Anyone else have any other questions? Mr. Denon?
So are we looking at a new agreement that you work on to bring to us, or like what's the plan?
I can definitely alter this one and resend it in.
Wait, is that what you were thinking, Mr. Chairman?
What I was thinking was we would have to check with our insurance company, the trust. We would have to define what properly maintaining is, usage of water, who's going to pay for that, or what kind of an agreement we have on that, storage of equipment or whatever. And then I'll be presenting this to the committee, the findings, and then we'll take it from there with a type of a contract and advise back. So, Mr. Mitchell, did you? Oh, okay. I apologize. All right, excellent. All right.
Thank you.
Friedland Group, thank you. Mr. Campanelli, thank you. Next item on the agenda, I apologize, let me just get back to discussion and a vote to approve revised 2017-2018 school calendar.
Mr. Chairman, members of the school committee, there, have been some changes to the school calendar given all of the snow days that we have had to deal with. We're still in pretty good shape, actually, in comparison to some of the other districts, especially those districts that started after Labor Day. But we are still on target to graduate on, to end school on June 20th, and we're still in good shape. The high school has been working to ensure that students are, seniors specifically, are getting in their 171 days, and we're still counting on graduation being on June 11th. So I would recommend approval, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Mitchell? Pleasure of the committee. Mr. Denon?
We hope we don't have any more snow days. But having said that, I noticed that the makeup days are listed, the remaining makeup days are June 21st and 22nd. Is the intention that we would just go to the following week if we needed to? To the 25th, 26th, 27th, and 28th, and 29th? Like,
If for some reason we needed to add days, we would have to, we would have those 2 days, right? 21, 22, and yeah, I think we'd do
yeah, okay. People ask us these questions. That's why I'm asking you. Yeah.
I know they do.
And I
yeah,
think because people look at that and say, well, those are the only makeup days. And the truth is, we're going to go to the end of the month.
well, if we had to,
Yeah,
but
thank you.
it's going to be 70 tomorrow.
Yep. Motion to approve.
Mr. Denon makes a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Second by Mrs. Friedman and Mr. DeMonica. All in favor? Against? Ayes have it, 7-0. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, discussion and a vote to approve amended policy G6 personnel benefit policy for non-unit administrators and support personnel. Mr. Fiorillo, did you want to weigh in on this?
Sure. This was again, this was in policy the other night. Just some minor changes. Quite honestly, it was just really about health insurance copays or co-shares. It says employees who earn less than $70,000 shall pay 17%. Employees who earn more than $70,000. What we realized is if somebody was actually making $70,000, we had a problem. So we have corrected that. Also, there was some discussion about possibly bumping these employees from 17 to 19% to be in line with some other contracts. However, the subcommittee did not feel comfortable raising their co-pays essentially 4% in 1 year in which they were not going to be receiving a pay increase at the same time. So we left it at 2% increase, so it's going to remain at 17%. This could all be moot if we go to an HSA, so stay tuned. But I would make a motion to approve G6.
Mr. Fiorillo makes a motion to approve G6. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Denon and Mrs. Friedman. All in favor? Against?
Against?
Ayes have it, 6-1. Mr. DeMonica voting against. Next item on the agenda, discussion and a vote to approve employee contracts. Mrs. Fogel, you could come up to the podium, please.
Good evening. Oh, sorry.
Mrs. Fogel, how many do we have total? Oh, I apologize. I meant to.
Total that we're going to vote on tonight, or total that are on the agenda?
How many total on the agenda?
$25, it looks like.
Mrs. Fogel, we are going to take out several positions.
Yep. So we're going to table D, the assistant superintendent, E, the business manager, J, the director of human resources, K, the director of information technology, and R, the superintendent. And I would also ask, and this is something I just realized as I was sitting there, I'm going to ask you to table C2, one of the assistant principals of teaching and learning. That position is currently vacant, and so and it's being filled by a teaching and learning coach. So I need to work on that contract. So while that position will come before you next time, that one's not ready. I just realized it as we were sitting here. So
All right, Mrs. Fogel. So we have 19 that we're going to vote on tonight, but we're also going to pull out one more for a separate vote, correct?
So Q, it doesn't matter. There's 3 elementary, 1, 2, or 3. I don't know which one you want to.
3.
Okay. Q3, we're going to pull that out, and we're going to vote on that one separately.
We're going to have 18. Can we take all 18 at once?
Sure.
Excellent.
So based on the superintendent's recommendation, I would ask you to approve contracts A, B1 and 2, C1, F, G, H, I, L, M 1 and 2, N, O, P, Q 1 and 2, 4 and 5, and that would be it.
Mrs. Fogel, I felt like I was in first grade.
No, I felt really weird. Sorry.
Mrs. Fogel is recommending to the committee to make a motion to approve the 18 as read employment contracts. Do I have a motion? Mr. DeMonica makes a motion. Do I have a second? Second by Mrs. Friedman. All in favor? Against? Ayes have it, 7-0 for the 18 contracts. Thank you, Mrs. Fogel.
And
Now-
then for Q3, we are going to, based on the salaries of the other elementary principals, we're going to increase the year 1 salary to $104,701. And then I will do the calculations, which I should have done while I was sitting there after that. So I'll present you with an amended contract, but I'll do the calculations for year 2 and 3
I
based
would
on
like
that base.
to, so Mr. Adams, we have Mrs. Fogel is recommending that somebody on the school committee make a motion, okay?
So I think just to be technical, I think a motion should be made to approve at the pleasure of the committee. I'm not telling anybody what to do. But a motion should be made to approve the contract, seconded, and then a motion to amend
That's what my question
the
was.
contract, perhaps in accordance with exactly what Mrs. Fogel said, which I forgot.
Thank you. This way she has a contract. So Mr. Denon makes a motion to approve the original contract. Mr. Hess seconds. All in favor? Oh.
Now motion to amend.
Chair, I make a motion, we amend the salary amount to the 104.
104,701.
So it'd be
Yes.
and that would be parity with the other elementary principals. I make that motion.
Mr. DeMonica makes a motion for the amendment of 104,701. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Denon. All in favor? Against? Thank you. Ayes have it, 7-0. Mr. Hess, I used to make that mistake all the time when Chairperson Bolio. Okay. So I have a motion, I have a second. As amended, all in favor? Against? Ayes have it, 7-0. Thank you. Mrs. Fogel, I believe we're done. Thank you. Next item on the agenda, discussion and a vote to approve resolutions. Mr. DeMonica, SCR 2008-05, amended fiscal year 2018 school budget.
All right, so let's get ready here. So SCR 2018-05 amended school budget. It's a resolution empowering the school committee to amend the current 2017-2018 school budget. And we will be moving $300,000 from healthcare, which is running in the black at the moment, and we're going to move that money to facilities. It was approved upstairs in a 3-0 vote, and I would move passage.
Mr. DeMonica is recommending making a motion for SCR 2018-05, amended fiscal year 2018 school budget. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Fiorillo. I know it's getting late. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Ayes have it, 7-0. Next item on the agenda, Mr. DeMonica.
SCPR 4/2018-07. It's a resolution empowering the school committee to purchase from W.W. Granger of Warwick, Rhode Island, an additional 17 water coolers, which will have the bottle filling stations as well. We're getting these purchased now because the price is going up $400 per unit very soon, and this will basically take care of every water station we have in the schools. We're going to disable a couple that are very close to each other, and so we're going to hopefully buy these water coolers. So it's the amount of $16,660. It was approved upstairs in a 3-0 vote. I would move passage.
Mr. DeMonica, real quick question. So these 17 coolers will take care of any other water cooler we have, correct?
Right, all the water coolers in the district that have not been already changed out. Remember last year we had the testing of the lead and so forth. So school districts throughout the state are replacing their coolers. We've done a few. We're going to do 17 more. They've looked at all the schools and the needs, and this will take care of all of them. We
Excellent.
won't have these issues anymore.
Mr. DeMonica makes a motion. It was seconded by Mr. Fiorillo. All in favor? Against? Ayes have it, 7-0. Thank you. Next item, Mr. DeMonica.
Next, SCPR 4/2018-08, a resolution empowering the school committee to execute a purchase of a 33-foot mechanical lift from United Rentals of Smithfield, the amount of $11,848. What this does is the district spends about $1,500 3 to 5 times a year to rent a lift to get to the ceiling tiles, lights, and so forth. By purchasing this used lift, which will come with a small warranty, but will already be serviced for the year, we'll be able to start doing painting high in the ceilings in the gymnasiums and so forth. So it passed upstairs 3-0, and I would move passage.
Mr. DeMonica makes a motion for SCR 4/2018-08, second by Mr. Fiorillo. All in favor? Against? Ayes have it, 7-0. Thank you.
Next is SCPR 4/2018-09, a resolution empowering the school committee to execute an agreement with VCT floor tile work at Cumberland Hill Elementary and Garvin schools to Debnor Flooring of Greenville in an amount not to exceed $26,500. We actually did bid this out last year. We just didn't have enough time to get the work done. It's again going in, removing more asbestos tiling from our school buildings. The people have done work for us in the past. It passed upstairs in a 3-0 vote, and I would move passage.
Mr. DeMonica makes a motion for passage of SCR 4 2018-09, second by Mr. Hess. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Ayes have it, 7-0. Thank you.
Next, SCPR 4 2018-10, a resolution empowering the school committee to execute a contract with Arden Engineering, who is the low bidder, to replace the electric panel and main switchgear at the high school in an amount not to exceed $142,800. This has come about. We got a letter from our insurance company a few years back about some of the schools have electric panels from Federal Pacific, and our insurance company does not like them. They're feeling they're not safe. We've already replaced them at McCourt, and the high school will be the last school that does not, that needs to be changed out. And so it passed upstairs in a 3-0 vote, and I would move passage.
Mr. DeMonica makes a motion for SCR 4 2018-10, second by Mr. Hess. All in favor? Against? Passes 7-0. Thank you.
Next, SCPR 4 2018-11, the resolution empowering the school committee to execute a purchase for Ocean State Flooring of Blackstone to install a new gym at the North Cumberland Middle School. The amount is $42,750. Our architects have looked at the underneath the floors, and we are going to be adding this floor on top of the current floor that's there. We're worried about a couple of dead spots, but I think we're going to be okay. And this work will be done before the end of the year. So it passed upstairs on the 3-0 vote. I move passage.
Mr. DeMonica makes a motion for passage of SCR 4 2018-11. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Denon. All in favor? Against? Ayes have it, 7-0.
Next, the SCPR 4 2018-12, a resolution empowering the school committee to execute a purchase contract with Frank Lizotte Glass of Rumford, Rhode Island for $23,599.70, and RLC Properties of Coventry, Rhode Island, in an amount of $45,068. And what this is for is they are going to be tinting the lower level glasses and entranceways in various schools throughout the district to help with security in a way. You won't be able to see in from the outside, you'll be able to see out. We've used the same tinting that we have used in the past couple of years at other schools, and it's just another unnecessary cost we have to spend to protect our kids and with this day and age. So I would move passage that we award the total amount of $68,667.70 to these two vendors.
Thank you, Mr. DeMonica. Mr. DeMonica makes a motion for passage of SCR 4 2018-12. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Hess. All in favor? Against? Ayes have it, 7-0.
All right, last is SCPR 4 2018-13, a resolution empowering the school committee execute a contract with Sonatrol of East Providence, Rhode Island, to install additional security equipment on various stores in the district. The amount is $16,698. It passed upstairs in a 3-0 vote. I would move passage. Some of the money is coming out of food service accounts, and the other will be coming out of facilities and budget. I would move passage.
Mr. DeMonica makes a motion for the approval of SCR 4 2018-13, security installation and contract at various schools. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Fiorillo. All in favor? Against? Passes at 7-0. Next item on the agenda, discussion and/or vote to approve homeschool instruction requests for the 2017-18 school year. Mr. Mitchell, did you want to?
Yeah, just there is, I believe, one. I recommend approval.
Late in the school year. Huh? Well, Mr. Fiorillo makes the motion. Mr. Hess seconds the motion. All in favor? Against? Ayes have it, 7-0. Next item, stay with me, Clan. Next item on the agenda, personnel recommendations. Mrs. Fogel.
Thank you. I have a few recommendations for you this evening. Do you want me to just take them all together?
Let's take them all together.
Okay, so I have two retirements. I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the retirement of Judith Bazignani, building administrator at Garvin Memorial School, effective June 30th, 2018, after 6 years of service. Marcia Limbach, payroll clerk for the Cumberland School Department, effective July 7th, 2018, after 28.5 years of service. I have a resignation. I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the resignation of William Hemond, custodian at Community School, effective April 3rd, 2018. And last, I have one leave of absence. I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the unpaid leave of absence of Kristen Lynch, grade 1 teacher at Community School, effective for the 2018-19 school year.
Mrs. Vogel, could you repeat the Mrs. Lynch's again for me?
Sure. It's a unpaid leave of absence. She is a grade 1 teacher at Community School, and it will be for the next school year, the 18-19 school year.
Pleasure of the committee on the 4 recommendations. Awesome. Mr. Fiorillo makes a motion. Mr. Hess second. All in favor? Against? Passes 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Fogel. Next item on the agenda, school committee comments, school liaison reports. Pleasure of the committee. Mr. Fiorillo.
I just want to say that the Garvin community will be sorely missing Mrs. Bastignani in the future. She has made her mark on that school and that community. I've enjoyed working with her the last few years. She's a great lady, and she was always there for the students and for the parents. So she will be sorely missed.
Thank you, Mr. Fiorillo. I agree. Anyone else? Mrs. Goggin?
I just wanted to make a further comment on Tuesday's subcommittee meeting and achievement. We heard a lot about interventions, but we also, I hope, had some hope for enrichment. And they mentioned, Miss Buck mentioned that, and I hope we start to see that. You know, we talked a lot about it in the middle schools, and I know there are definitely students there that need to be challenged more and could use some enrichment. So I hope to see that.
Thank you, Mrs. Goggin. Mr. Denon?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple comments. One I mentioned earlier upstairs too, but I shadowed a student at Cumberland High last week, and it was really worthwhile. And the different classes that I took, like in one class, I saw presentations about Romeo and Juliet, comparing them to modern day stories. And I think the first one was comparing Romeo and Juliet to Harry Potter, which was great. And so I just wanted to say that it was a worthwhile thing to do. I really appreciated all the staff that I sat in their classes. I was impressed by them. I was impressed by all the students. We often hear about negative things happening at the high school, vaping and all those things. I didn't see any of that, just to be clear. It was a good experience. And I would encourage everybody on the committee to do it if you can. The second one is about the North Cumberland had their history fair. Was it just last night? I have to say it was really impressive. The projects that the students did, the 8th grade students there, most of them worked in pairs, but some worked alone. And it's just impressive. If you have a chance to do it next year, take a walk through if you haven't done it. So I'd just like to thank everyone who put that together. I know Mrs. Coughlin and a bunch of teachers worked on it. Mr. Therian, I believe, was in charge, and they did a great job.
And thank you. So the shadowing the student, we were going to do it together. It was separate, and then I had to cancel due to a work function. And then today I was supposed to do it and had to cancel due to a work function. But I gotta skip a lot of work. But I do encourage every school committee member to reach out to Dr. Cody. It's a half day, so 7:15, and then usually lunch, and then that's it. So, anyone else? School liaison? Hearing none, we'll continue. I believe we do not have executive session. Mr. Fiorillo makes a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Hess. All in favor? Ayes have it, 7-0. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.